Here I am. So this is Lymphoma vlog number 2 for 2023. I apologise, I'm wearing the same shirt as yesterday, but I couldn't get the fashion police to come round and change me, so you got me as I am. I was talking about awareness of lymphoma. These are the huge umbrella of lymphomas. There's different types. I'm telling you about mine, but there are various different ones. But they all come under blood cancers along with leukemia, sickle cell, and pop you into the haematology unit. Yesterday I mentioned lumps and bumps, and 10 years ago mine were hidden because they were in my lower abdomen, a slightly fleshy part on a female body, although I wasn't particularly large, but nobody could feel them, despite, I think, one of the tumours being 8 centimetres long or whatever. This time, the main lymphatic tumour, which is the bit that causes the problems, is the one that I mentioned yesterday, just under my ribs in the top of the stomach cavity. And again, you can't feel it. I mean, once we knew it was there, you can actually feel a slight hardening of the skin underneath. And what I mentioned yesterday, which I don't know if it's clear, is that my last interim scan showed that the extranodal site, because these types of lymphomas kind of rest in other areas and there are better places for that and worse places for that, and your bone marrow is actually quite a good one because your bone marrow does regenerate. So it has gone from my bones, but we still showed on that PET that I have a kind of orange glimmering residue of the one in my stomach cavity. So the next process for me will be at some point that we'll need to do another biopsy. But I'll go back to the beginning. So after this time round where the PET scan showed there was stuff, then the normal procedures kicked in. And the normal procedures are that you go and have biopsies. So they biopsied the one in the stomach cavity first. That seemed to be low grade, and I think everything under 4 is low grade. So, but they were convinced I had high grade, and this was important for 2 reasons. It affects the type of treatment, and they were also hoping to put me into a special trial, which I would have to have had proof that I had high grade. And my bone marrow biopsy was inconclusive. So we ended up going for a 3rd round of biopsy, this time back in the bone, but a much, much more invasive procedure because somebody was effectively trying to go through from the back to the front of my pelvis. He's a very, very good, best in the business over here for doing that, but it was still inconclusive, which is why now further down the line we do have to have confirmation that this remaining tumour is in fact low grade, which is what we all suspect because it was originally, but it depends where in the tumour you take it from, and the outsides can look low and the insides can be high. So if we get definite proof, then we stay on the trajectory of treatment that I'm now on, which I can explain as we're going along. And if not, they then change the regime to make it more effective onto a thing called CAR T cell. But I'll explain more about that later. I mentioned symptoms yesterday with lumps and bumps and the fact that, if they're visible, then it's easier to detect. I talked about fatigue, I talked about itchy skin. Those are the kind of main things which, as I said, are so intangible. If you take them all together, apart from the lumps, a musician's life may be like that anyway. You could spend 6 or 7 weeks over the summer rushing from one festival to another, and nobody's going to be surprised if you're exhausted at the end of it. I have psoriasis, so I have itchy skin, and then the other one is night sweats, and my doctor is very specific about them being night sweats, and he talks about soaking the sheets. Well, frankly, I've never done that, so it's a symptom, but it's not one I have. And also for women, if you're menopausal, of course, that can be confusing. And 10 years ago I was 52, so this whole period of time my hormones are going up and down and all over the place. So where I am today is I am 5 days along from my 3rd round of chemotherapy. I have various drugs that I have to take in the interim period. Some start on day 5. I have injections that start on day 9. I have some I have to take twice a day. I have some I only have to take on Mondays and Thursdays. Fortunately, I still think my brain copes with all of that, but I do wonder for some people how easy it is to stay on top of those kind of drug regimes, even with those little plastic pots that they can put stuff in. But and then next week what will happen is I have a thing called a Hickman in my chest. So here there's a tube that goes in my neck and comes down here, and then further down I have these. These take blood and can put things in directly near my heart. Isn't that incredible? Now, it means it has to be kept incredibly clean because infection can go in, but it makes it extremely easy for them to get blood out. And that is fantastic because my veins are notoriously difficult for getting bloods out and meds in, and it can all be done through there. Chemotherapy can be done through there. And later on, when I go into stem cell transplant, that will also be done in and out through these. So I have tubes coming out my body and I hide them in between my bazooms, which is kind of handy. It's one of the few times when you're actually quite pleased you've got large ones. I think we'll leave it there for today. See you tomorrow.